Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's webinar on regional economic conditions, frontline workers' perspectives. My name is Carmiana Matson. I am the Assistant Vice President of Regional Outreach and Public Programs at the Minneapolis Fed. And before I turn it over to our speaker today, Erick Garcia Luna, I'd like to note a few items of housekeeping. We will be following up with all registered attendees today. We'll be sending you an email early next week with a link to Erick's slides, as well as a copy of the video of this presentation. He does have an article about the survey results, which has already been published on the Minneapolis Fed's website, and I'll drop a link to that in the chat box as well. Erick will have a few minutes at the end of this presentation for Q&A. So if you have questions for him, you can use the chat box on Zoom and I will pose those to him verbally. And at the conclusion of this presentation, you will receive an evaluation link. We'd love to get your feedback. Thanks so much for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Erick.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar today. As Carmi mentioned, I will be going through some of the results from a recent survey we conducted here at the Minneapolis Fed to better understand the region's labor market from the perspective of workers. This is part of our approach, our new approach to broaden the way we gather our regional economic intelligence here at the Fed. And just a very quick note to point out that any opinions I express throughout this webinar are my own and not necessarily those of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve or the Federal Reserve System. We at the Fed have been ramping up the work we do to gather regional economic intelligence in the 9th District. We are constantly expanding our networks and have been doing a lot of surveys in the last few months. As some of you may know, my colleagues have been doing some webinars throughout the pandemic to keep you all and the rest of the public informed. And we sure hope that we will continue to see you here for future events. So before I dive into our main topic here today, and especially for those of you that may be new to the Fed and our conversations here, you may be wondering what we mean when we say, when we talk about the 9th District. So just very quickly, as you know, the Federal Reserve is the central bank of the United States, but it is also a decentralized bank. When it was designed, it was divided into 12 different regions, and the decentralized aspect of that allows each bank to represent its regional economy in an independent manner when contributing to monetary policy decisions. The Minneapolis Fed represents the 9th District. It's shown here in the upper yellow part of the map and comprehends from left to right the states of Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and the northwestern part of Wisconsin. The monetary policy goals of the Federal Reserve are to foster economic conditions that achieve both stable prices and maximum sustainable employment. The two goals of price stability and maximum sustainable employment are known collectively as the dual mandate. To carry out our goals of pursuing stable prices and maximizing sustainable employment, the Minneapolis Fed executes outreach across the 9th District to get as much real-time economic information as possible. Traditionally, that process has heavily relied on 9th District firms and industry contacts that provide insights on current economic activity, including labor market conditions. That is very valuable information, but it leaves out important aspects of the economy. To address that, in recent months, the Minneapolis Fed has been more intentional in reaching out to a broader range of stakeholders. And under the leadership of President Neil Kashkari, we have launched two new additional initiatives. One that focuses on minority and women-owned business enterprises, and the second one to capture workers' perspectives. This presentation is going to align more with the last one of those two new focuses. We are at the very beginning of this complex work, and I just want to quickly thank the partners that helped make these workers survey possible. Unite Here 17, SEIU Local 26, the Minneapolis Regional Labor Federation, and of course, the frontline workers in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area that shared their experiences with us. And now to our main topic for today. The survey we conducted, it is a first of its kind here in Minneapolis, here in the Minneapolis Fed. and it's an ongoing attempt to hear directly from as many workers as possible. It is a pilot survey and part of a project that we are hoping to grow. We heard from 121 respondents, but despite this not being a statistically significant number, it offers very valuable insights into the labor market of the region. We made this survey available in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Somali. It was open from about mid-July to the end of August of 2021. And what the results taught us about respondents in a nutshell is that employed workers can also be job seekers. They would like to advance in the labor market, but often find it very difficult to invest in themselves. They're worried about meeting basic needs like housing, bills, and staying healthy. So I will start by looking at some of the characteristics of the workers that responded to our survey. Starting with the ethnic breakdown of respondents, the 3 largest blocks that you see here on this pie chart are 37% Latino, Latina, Latinx, 35% white, and 20% Black or African American. This shows that people of color are overrepresented in the industry, and in consequence, any economic shocks may have disproportionate effects on their families and communities. Levels of education, in the case of those workers that responded to our survey, low income does not necessarily mean or equate to low education or low skill. The yellow lines that you see here show that 55% of respondents in low wage jobs have at least some college credits. If we look closer at it, 10% have associate degrees, 13% bachelor's degrees, and if we add the largest green bar that you see in the chart, we have that 86% at least have a high school diploma or equivalent. We were also interested in knowing who contributes to their household income. I want to quickly note that this question allowed for respondents to select more than one answer. So those that did not select, I am the sole income provider, shown here in light gray, could have one or more household members contributing income to their household. Half of respondents said that they are the only ones providing income. The other half, however, said that either a spouse, a child, or a parent is contributing income to their household. It's worth noting that the survey did not ask them to specify the age of the child. So a child could be someone that's 16 years old or 30 years old. We mimicked a question from the Census Household Pulse survey. We asked these workers what income sources their household relied on to meet their spending needs during the pandemic, represented here by the blue line, and before the pandemic, which is represented by the yellow line. Most respondents said that they use regular income from work in both periods of time. These workers were in their majority union represented at the time they responded to this survey, and that may be the reason why such a high portion were able to rely on regular work income. Reliance on unemployment insurance, not surprisingly, went up 5 times during the pandemic, going from 7% to 40%. But responses also showed that there were increases in credit card use, and that the number of workers that responded to our survey who dipped into their savings or borrowed money from family and friends went up significantly. It either doubled or almost doubled. This shows just how complex household finances can be among these low-wage workers. More than half of respondents said they had no savings. From those who said that they do not have savings, approximately 60% said they just simply do not make enough to save, and 30% said they exhausted their savings during the pandemic. From those who have some savings, the majority only have enough to cover 1 month of expenses. Now, you may think that job seekers as people that are unemployed or underemployed and looking for a job. But that is not always the case, or not necessarily the case. Even when fully employed, sometimes even holding 2 or more jobs, we learned that these workers are very dynamic and many are moving through the labor market. We asked them some questions associated with that labor mobility. We asked workers what occupational changes they were trying to make. This question allowed respondents to select multiple options. At the top in green, we see that 58% of respondents want a job with better pay. That second green line shows that 47% would like a job with better benefits. But a very close third, 43% want more flexibility, either in their current jobs or in future jobs. This may be perhaps because workers are finding it more challenging to balance work and family responsibilities. 40% said they want a job in a different field. For some, the desire to make those occupational changes may be recent. There was definitely a spike in the 3 months prior to this survey, as reported by 31% of respondents. But an equal share also said they had been thinking about these changes for at least 18 months before the execution of this survey. That precedes the peak of the pandemic, in which people were thinking about making some occupational change. Those changes, however, aren't always easy to come. Only 7% said they find it easy to make those changes they want, and 65% expressed difficulties doing so. So what are some of those challenges respondents face as they move through the labor market? Some aspects are specific to the jobs they currently have or those jobs that they want to work in, and I've highlighted them here in yellow. 55% say the wages they're offered aren't just high enough. 43% are looking for better benefits. 30% said their schedules are difficult to keep, and 21% said the location was an issue. These are issues that are specific to those jobs, but other aspects are more complex. My apologies for that. They have to do with workers' challenges to maintain a healthy work-life balance and self-investment difficulties. Respondents recognize that as the economy evolves, they need skills and knowledge to keep up. 51% say they need more computer knowledge. Perhaps there is recognition that many jobs are increasingly adopting new technologies, and 30% say they need a computer and internet access, which could be in response to the need for more flexibility so that they can balance their work-life responsibilities. Yet, while many are willing to work to obtain new skills, 57% say they either do not have the time or know how to go about getting trained. Lastly, these workers are concerned with a broad range of life situations, but it's safe to say that more than half is worried about their ability to meet basic needs. 73% are worried about paying their monthly bills, 69% about healthcare coverage and costs, 66% paying for housing, and 49% with securing food for themselves and their families. Transportation, caring for family members, and immigration benefits are lower in the chart, but they do remain a concern for some. COVID exposure is a concern for 35% of respondents. This is not a big surprise, as for many of these workers, the jobs that they were able to keep during the pandemic were customer-facing, or they relied on public transportation to get to their jobs, and therefore the risk of exposure was very high. With that, I just want to highlight a couple additional wrap-up points here. As we sign the numbers, these low-income workers face a variety of challenges. They're diverse in nature. They could be specific to the jobs, or it could be something that they just find it challenging to pursue. While they may be in low-income jobs, in this case, that does not equal to low skill or low education. It may just mean that there isn't an exact match for what they want. And probably one of the hardest findings is that many face challenges to meet primary needs. Just want to thank you for joining us for this first survey. We're always looking for new partners. It helps us better understand the region's economy and broadens our perspectives as we talk about or write about the economy. So please, if you're interested, please contact me. The next slide will have my contact information. Last, keep an eye out for our surveys. The General Business Conditions Survey in October will be made available in English, Somali, and Spanish for the first time. And in November, we'll be sending our accurate survey and our hospitality and tourism survey. And with that, just want to thank you again.
Thanks, Eric. Eric will be entertaining questions via the chat box on Zoom. So if you have some, you can type them there. We've had a few come in already. Eric, why don't you get started by telling us, the slide in which you showed the income sources of these workers was a little interesting in that many of them indicated they did receive unemployment insurance benefits as well as the federal stimulus benefits. And yet it indicated that a high number of them were also taking out bank loans or loans from friends and family. Do you know what's going on there?
Well, I'm gonna go back to that slide real quick so that I can better try to explain that question. Sorry about that. I went too far, I think. There you go. So I think that what we're seeing here is, even though these individuals received unemployment insurance, it could be that they were falling behind on some payments. They were probably incurring, some other kind of debt, and therefore they might have used that income to catch up. The fact that they're using credit cards, money from savings, borrowing money from family members, it is also an indicator that, even the money that they're making or the money that they're receiving through those benefits may not be enough to put them to put them at a level in which they're comfortable, or that they are even able to catch up with their financial situation. Rent is one of them. People falling behind on making rent payments. We didn't specifically ask them, but anecdotally we know that that has been the case in some instances where people fall behind on payments, and they have used this money to catch up, as well as the stimulus money. You see that big bar right there that I didn't really speak about, mainly because there wasn't a pre-pandemic bar to kind of compare it to, because that's a pandemic benefit. And people also may have used that income to just make regular payments or even pay some of those credit card bills that may precede the pandemic.
There was a question in the chat as to whether you asked if any of these loans were payday loans. Do you have a sense?
We did not. No, we did not. But that is actually one question to keep for the future, because that could also be the case, to continue answering this question of why unemployment insurance is there, but yet they were unable to. They continued to make use of other payments.
Can you talk a little bit more, Eric? There were some questions about how this survey was distributed and what groups we chose. Can you give us a little bit more background on that?
Of course. Yeah, we actually, we chose those groups. We've been trying to reach out to a broad net of labor organizations, community organizations, and ask them to partner with us to try to get to the workers directly and get, learn a little more about what's happening in the labor market from their perspective. I will have to say, and thank you again to the partners that work with us on this survey. They were excited to collaborate with us in the distribution of this survey. My understanding is that we created the survey, we created a link, we share it with our partners. They send it out to their members, either in existing communications or a standalone communication. We collect that information, we do all the background work, prepare the reports. But all of that to say, we work with those that were very interested in working with us right away. All of that to say, I will invite others in the audience to reach out if they're interested in working with us. I know there is an expanding base of those labor organizations and community organizations that want to partner with us. So we're always, as I mentioned earlier, wanting to grow this work. So I will definitely invite those that are interested in collaborating with us this work to contact me.
Thank you. You mentioned that these were low-paying jobs. Was there a salary cutoff?
There was not a salary cutoff, but traditionally these people make less than $15, right? The $15 minimum wage in Minneapolis, is still, I believe, in progress of being implemented. But yes, I think that that most individuals is probably safe, and I may be mistaken on that statement, but it's probably safe to say that they make $15 or less.
Okay, so we don't maybe have a sense, you indicated the education levels on one slide. You don't have a sense that some of the folks with higher education are in higher paying positions?
No, that's not the case. These are all janitorial workers or restaurant workers, hotel workers. They are definitely not holding a job that aligns with what they might have gone to college for.
There was a question in the chat box from someone who was a little concerned or surprised that a number of workers expressed concerns about securing food, and they're wondering if you have any comments about that.
I don't have any more insight than what you see here, but that is definitely a concerning point that I highlighted at the end, right? I think it is very concerning to see that the majority of these workers, if you look at those yellow bars on this chart, about, what is that, about 47% or so, 48% may or are concerned with securing food. That is a food insecurity issue that some of these workers are experiencing, and putting a roof over their heads, paying the bills, and obviously healthcare costs and healthcare coverage are a concern. So I share those concerns, right? We share those concerns. We do not have more insight. Again, a pilot survey that we're very excited to have these results, something that we want to continue to learn more about.
And then where do we go from there, Erick? The Fed has learned some information from this survey. How do we take this information and do something with it?
Well, I think, this helps us inform several things, right? We recently made some changes to the reporting that we do along with all the other banks, all the Federal Reserve banks. People may know it as the Beige Book. And it helps us inform how we talk about the regional economy in that context. It also has helped us, put information out there in the form of, articles. Again, we put together summaries of these findings, share them with our partners, and they're free to do, to use those findings in whatever way, whatever way they want to use it to support anything they're doing. But also we make them public. As you mentioned earlier, these results were published last week, and we want people to know. I mean, I think that at the beginning, we just want to get this off the ground, put some structure to it, and hopefully more organizations and more people will want to be part of it, so that we can, continue to provide more valuable information and learn more, because it helps us and it helps the Fed make some monetary policy decisions as well.
Thank you. A couple of other questions just popped into the chat. Can you expand a little bit on the comment that some of the workers indicated they didn't know how to find or look for new jobs? Do you have any insight into that?
I could guess, because again, we don't ask that many details. I'm trying to find that slide here. I think it is this one that they're referring to. So they, sometimes it is a language barrier, sometimes it's technology access. You saw that a lot of people are looking for ways to get, a computer and learn more about technology. One anecdotal comment that I remember very well is, somebody told me, even when people have a cell phone, they do not always know how to use it to look for information that they need to, find another job, get training or what have you. A lot of people have cell phones, but that doesn't necessarily mean access to technology that will allow them to, access information for labor mobility in this case. So I think that it could be several things: access to technology, language barriers, and many times it's just a cultural barrier.
Great. Thanks, Eric. We've had a number of folks pop into the chat asking for copies of the slides. So I will point out that we are going to email everyone who is registered for this event next week with copies of the slides. We'll also post them on our website, and we will send you a copy of this video as well. And this is part of a series of webinars we do on our region's economy. We don't have an upcoming next webinar scheduled. We will definitely email you when we have our next webinar scheduled. But in the interim, if you are interested in joining us for another event, we do have a new installment coming up of our Racism in the Economy series on racialized barriers to wealth accumulation. And I've just posted a link to that in the chat if folks are interested in joining us for that. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with us today, and we hope we'll see you at an upcoming event.
Thank you.